Hi friends, thanks for connecting with me. Hope that you've had a good week. I hope you're doing good. So we're in this in the second week of this series leading up to Easter, and in this series we have looked last week, and we will look at the 5 different times that Jesus tried to help his disciples understand that he was going to die, but 3 days later he would rise from the dead. And the disciples had a very different view of what the end of this Jesus story was going to be. They saw a place of prominence and power that we're going to see in just a moment. But Jesus, of course, had a very, very different view, right? And last week we saw where Jesus and Peter got into an argument. Peter rebuked Jesus for saying that he was going to die, and then Jesus rebuked Peter right back. And Jesus's response to Peter is a key verse, key statement for this entire season. In Mark 8:33 that we talked about last week, Jesus said to Peter, "You are seeing things merely from a human point of view, not from God's. You are seeing things merely from a human point of view, not from God's." And so in this series, we're just investigating the life lessons that Jesus gave around his statements about his death, investigating those life lessons and seeing what we can learn about our lives today, kind of thing. So today we're looking at Mark 10, and this is actually quite a remarkable story about James and John, and we'll see in just a moment. But let's begin by reading in verse 32 of Mark 10. They were now on the way up to Jerusalem. Actually, can I just pause there for a second? On the way to Jerusalem. This was no casual trip to Jerusalem. This was not one of many trips that they've made. This is a very specific trip to Jerusalem, and the timing was very specific. Jesus knew exactly where he was going and what was going to happen. He knew that, and he's going to describe in just a moment, that he's going to be betrayed and that he's going to be killed, right? But also the timing of this is very, very specific. The timing of Jesus's trip to Jerusalem and his ultimate death worked around the feast, the Old Testament feast of Passover, the Passover celebration. So when it says, they were on their way to Jerusalem, this was very specific, the timing and the purpose of this trip. Okay, let's pick it up again, verse 32. They were now on the way up to Jerusalem, and taking the 12 disciples aside, Jesus once more began to describe everything that was about to happen to him. "Listen," he said. It's like, give me your attention. Listen to me, he said. "We're going up to Jerusalem, where the Son of Man," and now notice here he uses he's speaking in the third person. The Son of Man is a messianic term that's used in different places that Jesus is referring to himself. The Son of Man, or in other words, I, will be betrayed by the leading priests and teachers of religious law. They will sentence me to die and hand me over to the Romans. They will mock me. They'll spit on me. They'll flog me with a whip and kill me. But after 3 days, I will rise again." Jesus is making he's removing no doubt that he is about to die, right? He's trying to put it in the clearest terms possible. And then this little story takes a really crazy twist. In verse 35 says, "Then James and John, the sons of Zebedee, came over and spoke to him. 'Teacher,' they said, 'we want you to do us a favor.'" And I don't know if Jesus knew what was coming, but maybe Jesus is like, "Oh, okay, cool. Like what, how can I help you," kind of thing. "What is your request?" he asked. And they replied, "When you sit on your glorious throne, we want to sit in places of honor next to you, one on your right and the other on your left." Now, James and John were part of the inner circle of 3 disciples. You know that Jesus had the masses that followed him, thousands of people that he fed, on a side of a hill. And then he had hundreds of people that were much more devoted, much closer to him. But then he had the 12 who were his disciples, his Talmudim, his disciples. his apprentices. But then within the 12, he had a very small select group of 3, Peter, James, and John. And last week we saw where one of the 3, Peter, got into an argument with Jesus because he disagreed with this statement about dying. And now we see the other 2 of the 3 are completely missing the point. They knew that something big was about to happen. They could feel it in the air. And if you read, maybe later read the entire chapter, and people were afraid, and they were like, there was a lot of energy in the air. So the disciples knew that something big was about to happen. And, I think that they thought that Jesus was going to Jerusalem to take up a physical throne, to be the physical king of Israel. And when they said in verse 37, when you sit on your glorious throne, and they were seizing the opportunity. It's almost like James and John, they're like, we've struck it rich here. This dude that we hooked up with 3 years ago, this Rabbi Jesus, it turns out this Rabbi Jesus is a really big deal, and he's going to become the king of Israel, like David was our king, and Solomon and Saul. He's going to become the king of Israel. And so let's seize this opportunity to ask him for places of power and importance when he sets up, his kingdom, right? So this is an incredibly obtuse thing for them to say. And in verse 20, let me just say this. Matthew offers an interesting other element to this story. Matthew tells us that James and John's mom was actually in on the scheme. In Matthew chapter 20, he says, then the mother of James and John, sons of Zebedee, came to Jesus with her sons. She knelt respectfully to ask a favor. In your kingdom, please let my 2 sons sit in places of honor next to you. I just think it's interesting that Matthew picked up on the fact where Mark left that part out, but Matthew's like, yeah, actually their mom was part of the thing too, Anyways, verse 38, but Jesus said to them, you don't know what you're asking. And really, you don't know what you're asking. Are you able to drink from the bitter cup of suffering I am about to drink? Are you able to be baptized by the baptism of suffering I must be baptized? And listen to their answer. It's so obtuse. Oh, yes. Oh, yeah. So they replied, we're able. Yeah, for sure. We can do that. But they had no idea. They completely missed the point. They were angling for positions of power and prestige in this new physical kingdom that Jesus was going to set up. But they completely missed the point that Jesus' whole life is not characterized by power and prestige. Jesus' whole life is characterized by humility and service. I wonder, how disappointed Jesus was in this. I wonder if he was, because just previously one of, Peter, who was also in the inner 3, was arguing with Jesus, and now James and John and this whole thing. I wonder if Jesus was like, I don't think so really, but if he was like, oh boy, maybe we should, cut these 3 out of the deal and choose another kind of inner 3. I wonder how Jesus felt and how disappointed he was, in that moment. Anyways, going on in verse 39, then Jesus told them, you will indeed drink from my bitter cup and be baptized with my baptism of suffering. He was looking ahead to the martyr's death that they would die eventually years later. But verse 40, he said, I have no right to say who will sit on my right or my left. God has prepared, the Father has prepared those places for the ones he has chosen. Now look at verse 41. When the 10 other disciples heard what James and John had asked, they were indignant. And, it's interesting, the power dynamics, right? James and John, Peter have a closer relationship with Jesus, and maybe there's a bit of jealousy or something going on there. But then when James and John pull this power move, then the others are like, what? Like, they're indignant, it said. And I wonder how much that revealed about the other disciples and their aspirations of power. It's kind of like if I have no aspirations of power or wealth or whatever, and somebody else rises to a place of prominence or they win the lottery or whatever, then I'm like, cool, great, I'm so happy for you, right? But if I have my own aspirations of power and wealth, then I tend to be jealous of others, and I wonder if their indignant response, said something about themselves. My point is that quite often my response to other people says more about me than it does about the other person. Does that make sense? I'm just going to leave that one there. Let you think about that one. Going on in verse 42. So Jesus, there's this situation that's kind of happened here. I don't know exactly what it looked like, but there was some heated conversation. The disciples, the other 10, were indignant, and there's some heated conversation, and maybe these two are over here, and what, like, I can't believe you, and then these little argument breaks out over here, and people are just, this thing is going on, right? And Jesus sitting over here scratching his head, going, I can't believe that this is happening, right? And so Jesus uses this as a teaching moment. Verse 42 says, so Jesus called them together. He's like, guys, come on over. I have something to say to you. Can we just pause for a moment, the argument here? Come on over. I have something to say to you. So Jesus called them together and said, you know that the rulers of this world lord it over their people, and officials flaunt their authority. They flaunt their authority over those under them. But among you, it will be different. Whoever wants to be a leader among you must be your servant, and whoever wants to be first among you must be the slave of everyone else. Now, and this is the big statement, verse 45, for even the Son of Man, again speaking third person, even I, Jesus said, came not to be served, but to serve others, and to serve in the ultimate way, and to give his life, to give my life as a ransom for many. Even the Son of Man, even I came not to be served like a king in a palace. I came to serve others, the helpless, the needy, the sick, the dying. I came to do the serving, right? And this is such an interesting display of two very different worldviews. One is selfish ambition, and selfless ambition. Selfish ambition, tongue twister, and selfless ambition, right? So here's the thing that I always try to ask at the end, whether verbally or subconsciously. I always try to ask at the end of these discussions, now what? Like, okay, that's interesting, and probably all of us would agree that selfish ambition is bad and selfless ambition is good, so let's try to be more like Jesus. I think we would all agree. But the big question is, now what? What do we do with this? How do we move forward, like tomorrow morning, with this concept, with this teaching, right? There are two general ways that we can answer that question. Now what? What we might tend to lean towards is, to just stop being selfish. To just say to ourselves, okay, today I'm not going to be selfish. Today I'm going to look to the needs of others. today I'm going to try to serve somebody, right? And we do that. Tomorrow morning we wake up, okay, today I'm going to be selfless. Today I'm going to try to serve the needs of somebody, and then the next day we wake up, but by the third and fourth day, that kind of wears off and we kind of go back to how we normally are, right? My point is that obligation, duty, and willpower, they'll only get you so far, right? It'll only get you so far. It'll wear off after a few days. But the better way, maybe, to view this is the Jesus way. And friends, the Jesus way is summarized in one word, 4 letters: love. Love, love, love. The Jesus way is all about love. And that verse in verse 45, Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve and give his life as a ransom for many. That verse is such a beautiful statement about the character of Jesus, and it's such a beautiful statement about the love of Jesus. I know I've said this before, but who else rises to a place of prominence and power and uses that place of prominence to serve others, and in fact uses that place of prominence to intentionally let people kill them, right? Nobody does that, right? Or maybe we can find a few people in history, but very, very few people will do that, use their place of prominence and power to actually lay down their life to serve others. And this tells me of the beautiful character of Jesus, that he is defined by love, and Jesus can be so trusted, right? So 2 ways we can answer the question, what next? What do we do with this? One is to say, by willpower, I'm gonna stop being selfish, I'm gonna serve others. But the other way is to allow the love of Jesus to infect us, to get into our bones and change the way that we see life and change the way we view others. Friends, when we are motivated by love, love changes everything. Love changes everything. When the love of Jesus gets into our bones, it changes everything. As I was thinking about this, I thought about this actually just this morning. When a parent runs into a burning building, kind of that proverbial burning building, when a parent runs into a burning building to save their child, why do they do that? What motivates them? They're not motivated by duty and obligation. Oh, I guess I better go, go. No, they run into that building with no consideration of their own needs because of love, right? And so love changes everything. But let me just finish by putting some boundaries around this. Love does what's best for the other person, right? I think that's a really good definition of love. Is when you want what's best for the other person more than what's best for you, right? Love does what's best for the other person. And sometimes, and I'm thinking again, I guess, of parent-child relationships, but this can apply to different relationships. Sometimes it's actually best for me not to do something for somebody. So an example might be a child who lays around on his or her lazy butt, and the room is a mess. They never lift a finger to clean anything up. And a parent may be obligated, well, I'm here to serve, and so I'll come and pick up your dirty underwear, right? But love actually says, no, you know what? It's better for you to learn to pick up your dirty underwear. It's better for you to learn, to do whatever. Love says, listen, this is really important. Love says that I will do for you only what you will do for you. Now I'm messing it up. I wrote it down. Hold on. Did I write it down? I can only help you. This is it. I can only help you as far as you will help yourself. I will only help you as far as you will help yourself. And that statement has a lot of different ramifications in different relationships. But my point is that sometimes it's better to empower the person we're serving to actually do it, right? To take responsibility themselves. So love does not mean that we just do everything for everybody mindlessly, even at the cost of our own health. Love has healthy boundaries, and love does what's best for us, loving ourselves, and love does what's best for other people. Okay, I've gone long again today, so I need to wrap up. So if you can be with us on Sunday, we super look forward to being together with you. Food will be served at 10:30, and our worship and conversation will begin at 11. Okay? God bless you, friends. Have a great day.